Before we start the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain why. First of all, it's free, so you can get it anywhere, anytime, costs no money. Second of all, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, whatever device you choose. As well as that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast too with no minimum listenership. That means a nobody podcast like mine can make money off of sponsorships. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So if you haven't tried Anchor or you want to start a podcast and haven't tried it yet, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started.
You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. This is episode 22, I believe. And today we've got quite a bit to talk about. Not only some MMA Twitter drama that actually had me agreeing with some people that I don't particularly like in the community. I'll get into that in a bit. But there's also some MMA news, I guess, that came out that I wanted to kind of discuss. And I'll get into that as well. But last week, we just covered last week's event, UFC 258, and just all the bullshit that was happening on MMA Twitter. But more importantly, last week's mini was a very important one. And the reason why I'm taking my time right now out of the podcast to do this is to tell everyone to go and listen to that already. I may have stammered and stuttered and fucked up quite a bit, but I covered essentially every bit of info you need for the Burma/Myanmar coup d'etat, and just to kind of understand what's going on, go listen to that mini because I kind of covered everything, the timeline, the events, and just kind of explain what's going on over there and how serious it actually is. I recommend anyone who wants to kind of help out in the world and, wants to raise awareness to listen to that and share it amongst your friends and everything. So, anyway, enough of that. I'm done advertising my own shit. All right. So I guess we'll just get into the topic now. All right. So I told you guys that it was some big shit, that it was some drama that had me agreeing with people that I've actually bashed on this podcast in the past. And I'm going to get into it. So earlier this week, I guess this entire situation has been going on for a couple months now behind the scenes. But a couple days ago, as of recording this, it's Sunday, but a couple days ago, probably like 5 or 6 days ago, the entirety of Twitter, like MMA Twitter, blew up with these subtweets. A very well-known account on there amongst the community known as Kairos MMA. He's very well respected as well. Everybody loves his takes. Plus, he's just funny. He makes these video replies to pretty much anything. He's very well liked in the community. And he's known as one of the guys in the community that's very, rational thinking. And he was just going off in subtweets on a woman. That was all we knew, really. And he was just, without spilling the name or anything, just going off on this woman, saying that this woman is fat, that this woman looks like the slug lady from Monsters, Inc., that this woman's a self-righteous hypocrite, how she's actually just a woman-hating feminazi, stuff like that, just going in on this woman, just completely going in on this woman's appearance and just her beliefs, not because he hates their beliefs, but mainly because this person that he's hating on is pretty damn hypocritical and pretty trigger happy when it comes to canceling men. But we'll get into the whole situation in a bit. Enough said. Some people were very upset with him going in on this person's weight until it all came out what actually happened. Because Kairos's group, like his friends, some of the people that I actually don't like, came to his defense. And the entire situation that's actually unfolded from a couple months ago, maybe like a month ago or so, behind the scenes to now, is just fucking ridiculous. And I'm so glad that everything was clarified before anyone started going at Kairos's neck. And, part of me is kind of glad that this situation had me agreeing with the people that I don't particularly like on that platform. But anyway, so I guess there's this woman on Twitter, on MMA Twitter, who also has an OnlyFans, and I'm not gonna tell you her at. I'm just gonna call her, I don't know, Leah or something. And this woman has an OnlyFans as well. I guess in the DMs, her and Kairos were flirting, and this was consensual. This was going back and forth. This wasn't Kairos going into her DMs and harassing her every day until she gave in. Like, this was both like each other sliding into each other's DMs and flirting back and forth, sending, nasty shit. It evolved to the point where they're sending nudes back and forth and like videos back and forth, essentially. Essentially, the way I'm putting it, the way I'm going to put it is Kairos is getting free samples of her product because she likes him. And I guess after a while, I don't know the whole story. At some point, if he wants to talk about it, I know he wants to get it behind him. But at some point, I would love to have Kairos on the podcast to talk about this situation, just kind of, clear some things up. But from what I understand, is eventually after a while, I guess they stop talking. Like, you know how things go when two people are flirting, it either works or it doesn't. And I guess in this case, it didn't. And I don't know Leah's side either. I just know that at some point during all this, after he stopped talking to her or whatever, she had sent this item. I don't know if it was I don't know for sure if it was a video or a dick pic, but it was a nude or something of the like. It was a explicit item, is what I'm gonna refer to it as. She shared this explicit item with her group chat of girls, and one particular girl took that and started going around behind the scenes, I guess, in DMs to the larger accounts on the platform and sending them this explicit item claiming that Kairos is, well, a pervert, a predator, and saying that this nude was unsolicited and that of what I understand is she was also going on about how he had sent it to her, and just the entire thing was a smear job to paint Kairos as a predator, because I don't know if they've had some beef in the past or behind the scenes, but this woman, known on Twitter for constantly calling out men for being sexual predators, apparently, and for the most part, from what I've seen, yeah, I've unfollowed her after a while because I kind of got sick of her self-righteous attitude, but from what I've seen, when she does call out dudes for being sexual predators, it is people who are, going through investigations or have evidence to prove that they are exactly that. But in this case, it was just her trying to slander a man behind the scenes to some of their closest friends, and it backfired essentially. And it continued for a while until recently Kairos had enough. Um, and, had his, I wouldn't say breakdown, but he did kind of freak out and go on this big tangent, this subtweet tangent, and he just kind of went in on her. And so doing that, he um, angered a lot of people, but then he came out with what was actually happening. And people were just taking his word for it, but then more people started to come out about it, including his friends, including some people that I don't like, and I'm going to name drop them, not in a bad case here, but people like Gina, who I had a beef with back in the summer, who, she's the one who called me an Amish boy, that insult I've never fucking heard before, usually I get sick and tired of hearing most of the insults I hear online, but when she called me an Amish boy, I was pretty proud of that. I actually had to put it in my bio because I was like, wow, that's a new one. I hear stuff like, "Oh, you look like Harry Potter," or "You're the Crimson Chin because you have such a defined chin." It's like, yeah, but that one was pretty spot on. I couldn't even be mad about that. I just had to laugh. But anyway, I don't like her, but even like she was on the right side of things here, and it just, from what it looked like, this whole situation had sides of Twitter that didn't like each other, or on a good day that wasn't like this, they would be harassing each other and subtweeting each other and going at each other's throats. But these two sides that would literally be causing an entire civil war on MMA Twitter were actively working together to expose exactly what this girl did and this OnlyFans chick did, and clear Kairos's name and to corroborate his story. And with all of that being done and said, the OnlyFans girl had no choice but to finally come out and admit that she was the one who sent the nudes out, and that Kairos sent them to her consensually, that everything that happened between her and Kairos was consensual. And she clarified. So this is the part that I think is probably the dirtiest here. I mean, she could very well just be lying to save her skin, but she said that when she sent it to her group chat, which, first of all, why would you send it to her group chat? You kind of did him dirty as is, just doing it like that. But when she sent it in her group chat, I guess Alex saved it without asking or something. The girl that was spreading all this, and started sending it to people's DMs and everything. And so Leah was trying to clear her name, and she got quite the brunt of it, which I'm not, I'm gonna clarify this now. I'm not simping for an OnlyFans girl. I don't give a fuck that she has an OnlyFans. What she did to Kairos was fucking dirty, and I'll admit that, and I'll wholeheartedly admit that. All I'm gonna say is I kind of fear for her mental health right now, because she was saying some pretty fucking crazy things about how she wants to disappear and stuff, and she was posting some pictures of her cutting herself and stuff on Twitter, which, part of me also thinks she's doing that for attention, but that's neither here or there. But the thing that surprised me the most was the self-righteous girl, Alex, who pretty much buried her head in the sand until finally the pressure became too much and her little bubble of her followers burst, and a lot of the people that followed her and supported her started asking about the Kairos situation, and started quote tweeting her tweets and asking about the Kairos situation and stuff. So finally, she did the kind of the cheat move, the fuck you move that she does, that anybody would do on Twitter when causing beef and kind of doing someone dirty. They put like almost like a PR like apology. She put this apology out, this long ass apology that didn't even directly apologize for what she did, and it read more like a corporate apology, if anything else, than an actual personal apology to Kairos, which is what it should have been. And even though it's cool that she posted it for people to see, and she probably should have if she was going to do the apology better. all of that should have been solved in DMs and then, exposed by both groups to say, hey, look, we've buried the hatchet and everything. But that wasn't it. It was only until her bubble burst and the drama started to really hit her that she finally took her head out of the sand and responded. And her response wasn't even that good. And then she just up and quit Twitter after making her profile picture blue and then just closing her account. So I feel for I fear for Leah's or the OnlyFans girls' mental health, but Alex, she did this to herself mostly, and she clearly didn't feel bad about it until it finally came down and ruined her reputation on Twitter. So I don't feel bad for her. All in all, though, it was just a weird situation of a person who was well respected for the most part just trying to completely diminish the reputation of somebody else, and it backfired on them. And then the way they handled that just again not only backfired on them but blew off their entire foot. And yeah, so that's the whole situation. That Alex is off Twitter now. Kairos is cleared. He's a good man. I feel for him. I feel for Leah because she's probably going through the works right now. She's not coming back until people kind of wind off of her. But I do got to say this before I move on to the next topic. What she did was fucking dirty anyway. She shouldn't have shared those pictures. She shouldn't have had... If they were done talking, he was done with her and she knew that, she should have just deleted those instead of just sending them to her group chat. This goes again for guys as well. I know guys who do this as well. Don't do that shit. If you have an ex and you still have her photos, delete them. Like, there's no reason for you to have them. That shit's just fucking creepy. It's disgusting. But anyway, that's it for that topic. The other topic that I'm going to get into is a little bit kind of heartbreaking. Not towards the people that have been exposed, but the video that kind of came out about it. The whole situation's a little fucky, and I'm going to explain it. Depending on if I can figure out how to do it, I might put the audio in for the video, but if not, and I assume I'm not going to, I'm just going to explain what the video is. So earlier, yesterday morning, so before the fights had started, Sahara Eubanks, so women's flyweight Sahara Eubanks, actually I think she's a bantamweight now, Sarge in Charge, someone that I've talked about on the podcast before and I actually really liked up until this point. I guess her account was hacked, and a video was posted that depicted her as a silhouette talking very aggressively towards a person behind the camera who sounded very very distressed, and it seemed like they were arguing, and Sahara was, like I said, talking aggressively, getting a little loud, and what you could hear was kind of like a smacking, kind of like that, kind of like she was like smacking her fist together or something like that. And the person behind the camera was telling her to please stop. You're traumatizing my daughter. Don't traumatize my daughter. And I didn't hear a child exactly in the video that I watched. Of course, I didn't watch it with headphones on. It's kind of disturbing. I don't want to, but I didn't hear a child in there. But the person behind the camera does run, and that's when you kind of hear the smacking, and you fucking hear Sahara Eubanks aggressively saying, fucking try me, come at me, fucking try me, let's go. Just stuff like that. And Twitter kind of blew up yesterday with this because that's serious, man. Like, that's some potential domestic abuse being depicted here, and something has to be done about it. However, I guess Sahara Eubanks responded on Instagram later that night and specified that this is the case. So This doesn't make it right. This doesn't justify the video at all and her actions in the video at all. So before I get into the explanation, I'm just going to point that out there because I feel like some people would try to twist my words if I didn't just clarify that. But anyway, so she came out on her Instagram stating that the video was just a snippet of their relationship, that type of behavior is kind of on both sides, that the person behind the camera, her partner, um, she both of them are kind of back and forth in this type of thing. Apparently she's abusive too. I don't know how legitimate those claims are, but I'm going to not take them with a grain of salt because it's not like it's not like Sergeant in Charge, Sahara Eubanks is trying to justify what she was doing. She was just explaining, I'm not as bad as you guys think. That was just me, snapping. It goes both ways. Of course, she was trying to make herself seem like the better person slightly, but that didn't justify what she did at all. Instead, she just kind of admitted that what she did was wrong and that it was abusive. That being said, though, my personal takeaway from this and from what the video of from what I heard in the video, I don't think there was no child that was being abused in the video. Even though a lady in the video claimed, stop, you're traumatizing my daughter. I do believe those actions traumatize children. Trust me. I've not much, I've only ever experienced it once and it wasn't brutal abuse or anything like that. But, I've seen that type of shit, and the type of scars it leaves on a child is pretty fucked up. My parents, I've talked to them about their childhoods and what they've seen and stuff. And, there's a whole lot worse. And I know that that type of behavior does traumatize kids. So that actually brings me to the whole, the gist of the situation, the whole aftermath, me leading off of it is that I don't feel bad for either party in the situation if that's the truth. I believe it is the truth. I believe both parties aren't innocent. In the video, the lady that sounded distressed behind the camera and running didn't actually sound panicked or like her life was being threatened. She sounded more angry in that she was about to fight back more than anything. And if I'm going to take anything away from the situation, because both sides are bad, I feel for the child, the supposed daughter that this lady claims is there with them. I feel for them. Because if this is how they treat each other, I really do hope that they don't treat the child like this. And clearly, the person behind the camera has some concern for the trauma that her daughter might take, but I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and it just paints a really dark picture and just really disturbs me, if anything, because if, like I said, if what Sahara Eubanks is saying is true, that both parties are like that, and maybe I'm wrong and they're not good to the child behind closed doors, if both parties are aggressive like that to each other and that's just their personalities in general, that makes my heart hurt for the child. We've seen these cases before, not with two partners. Well, I guess yes, actually, with two partners. We've seen it with children before. I can't name any specific cases off by heart except for obviously the most famous one, Gabriel Hernandez or Fernandez. The one with the doc on Netflix. But, a lot of kids go through this type of shit where both partners could either be nuclear towards each other and then towards the child, or they could be a deviant duo and just nuclear towards the child. But either way, this environment is not good for the child. Even if the child isn't receiving any physical abuse, there's going to be some verbal and mental and emotional abuse. And even if it's not directed at them, they're still going to be there witnessing it, and that alone is traumatizing enough, seeing parents fight viciously like that all the time. And from what it seems like, it sounds like they're like between Sahara Eubanks and her partner, it's physical because it's not like she denied anything like that. Um, so that's another thing that kind of worries me about this situation. But anyway, we'll see what Dana does about this situation if more comes out. If more comes out that, there was some actual abuse, some physical abuse, I wonder what type of stance Dana will take. Um, I don't think he will take a serious stance. It's not the first time something like that has happened with MMA fighters. You know, obviously, we have fucking we have her right now who nothing's been done with, and fucking Greg Hardy, who was actually a woman abuser, never apologized for it, never really made amends for it at all, is now a contender at heavyweight in the UFC division. I don't think Dana cares about anyone that abuses their wives. I just think as long as they can fight and they make money, I think that's all that fucking matters to Dana. So I don't think anything's gonna come from this. But just to kind of put an end to talking about this depressing topic, I really do hope that the child is safe and that, the child isn't getting the brunt of this. And if something comes out that the child is, I hope actions are taken, like necessary actions are taken. And I really do hope that either the child is safe now or the child ends up in a safe home. That is probably the biggest thing that my mind is thinking about right now, knowing now that, both parties, Sahara Eubanks and her partner are kind of abusive towards each other. I'm more worried about the child more than anything. So anyway, that's enough for that topic. To end things in the first half here before we get into the fight night main card, Booger Beard, a man I've talked about plenty times on this podcast, who's had a ongoing beef with Phil. Pretty one-sided if you ask me, because Phil's just gone out of his way to accuse Booger Beard of all sorts of things and tried to smudge his name, but, with no evidence, it backfires on him like a jammed gun. So, anyway, why am I talking about him? Did Phil do another thing again? No. There's a reason why I didn't actually have a hate on for Phil this week, that I was actually agreeing with that whole group. But I guess I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday morning. Everybody kind of came to found out that Booger Beard had been suspended from Twitter. And we all thought that it was Phil and his gang of cronies, that kind of mass reported him. That's not what happened at all. I guess what happened was the night before, I guess Booger Beard was having a conversation with a man, and things got heated. And as he does, his sort of comedy is aggressive and just stupid. So, his typical, like, I'm going to knock you out and then I'm going to suck you off stick. And then there's the, I'm going to suck all your cum out of you until you die. Stupid shit like that. He said something along the lines of, I guess they got into a Skyrim argument, and he joked around and said, I'm going to fucking kill you in Skyrim. Or something like that. Something along the lines. Something like that. Either I'm going to kill you in fucking Skyrim, or I'm going to kill your character in Skyrim, or I'm going to kill your Skyrim character. But something along those lines. And Twitter being Twitter, and being the dumbest platform of all that I still use, may I add, I complain about it all the time, and how its rules are so fucking finicky, and how it's, picky and choosy. I still use it, so, yes, I understand that. But anyway, Twitter, being fucking dumb, banned him permanently. And so he had to send in he sent in an appeal, and he's still waiting on that appeal to even be opened or responded to. And that's if they even let him back. Like, I don't even think they will. But so if you were one of his followers and you didn't know where the fuck he went, he's now on Instagram under Boogerbeard1, I believe, or Boogerbeard, and he's on YouTube as well, under the name of Boogerbeard space KOF, knockout fellatio. So go check him out if you miss all of his fucking wacky ass aggressive content, because he posts a lot of it there, especially on his Instagram. He posts on his Instagram like it's Twitter, and it's fucking awesome. So, it's going to be a good follow for me. You're going to spam the fuck out of my timeline. Anyway, so I guess that's enough, but fuck you, Twitter, for banning Booker Beard for joking about killing a man's video game character in the video game. That, like, he even specified it, and you still banned him. But hey, whatever. That's Twitter for you. Gotta be careful with these fucking idiots. Anyway, we got some good fights coming up in this fight card. We'll be covering the main card. The main event was pretty interesting, and it was something I was actually really excited for. Some other fights ended up pretty decent too, and we are going to get into them for you guys. And we will also be talking about the fight card next week at the end of the podcast, and UFC 259 that's happening at the beginning of March. So let's get right into that shit. All right, so first fight of the main card. So first of all, we had all 6 main card fights, but there were some cancellations. Before I get into that, I will be talking about the cancellations. Some of them were kind of, like last second, I'd say. So anyway, the first cancellation that I actually remember happened on the actual day itself, or maybe the day before during weigh-ins. It was Luis Pena versus Drakkar Klose, and I believe that was because Drakkar Klose missed weight. Or no, it might have been a medical reason, but the fight ended up not happening, and it was pulled off of the prelims. And then I guess this was the craziest thing, and it's the only time I'm going to talk about the prelims tonight, but the second fight altogether of the night, not the main card of the night, so this was the second fight of the early prelims, was supposed to start, what's his face? Chaz Skelly. It was Chaz Skelly and Jamal Emmers. Or is it Jamal Emmers, I believe? Give me a sec here. I need to go over to my little area over here. I believe so. Yeah, so it was. And what happened was Chaz Skelly walked out. Like, everything was fine. So he had his walkout and everything. And here's the thing. I guess Jamal Emmers' body gave out. Like, okay, so I'm not explaining it properly. So what happened was, I guess he was warming up, as they do before the fight, get their muscles all loose and get their heart pumping, get themselves pumped and ready to go. And I guess as he was warming up, I don't know if it was as he was about to walk out, but as during warm-ups, he experienced some back spasms. Not not some like small back spasms either, some like bad back spasms that immobilized him for a little bit. And it was almost like his body gave out on him completely. And I don't know exactly if it was because of the weight cut. It could have very well have been, or it could have been some other reason. But that was scary nonetheless, because Chaz Skelly came out like it was like nothing. And we didn't get word of this at all. Nobody did. No media members, just the officials. And so Chaz Skelly walks out. He does his walkout, gets into the octagon. He's standing there, and we're waiting for Jamal Emmers' walkout. And the I think it was Bruce. I think it was Bruce, or maybe it was somebody else last night, if I remember correctly. But the announcer came in and said that the fight was called off due to a health issue with Jamal Emmers. Just right then and there. Didn't make it out of the fucking change room. So it was pretty worrying when we heard that. So we were one fight down that night. But anyway, like I said, that was the only time I'm going to talk about the prelims. The first fight of the main card, pretty fun because we had some big boys and it was a brawl. It wasn't a boring heavyweight fight. Actually, we had 3 heavyweight fights on this card, and all 3 heavyweight fights were fucking great, in my opinion. So let's just start off with the first heavyweight fight. We had a fight between the veteran, the former heavyweight champion of back when it was no holds barred, pretty much, Andrei Arlovsky. He also beat Tim Sylvia for the belt. That was when he actually was the champion, if I remember correctly. He was light heavyweight champion back in the day, and then he was heavyweight champion after he beat Tim Sylvia. He's a veteran in this game. Andre the Pitbull fucking Arlovsky going up against a up-and-coming prospect from England in Tom Aspinall. And he's been on a 2-fight win streak now. Both fights have been finished in like less than 90 seconds, I believe, or just about 90 seconds via KO. This guy's on a fucking tear. And that was no different coming into this bout. I thought that the experience was going to win. Usually with these guys, you usually bet against the old heads, but Tom Aspinall, I felt, was still a little unproven at the time. So I thought Andrei Arlovsky was going to win due to his experience alone, but Tom Aspinall came out swinging, and it was just clinching up and hitting Andrei Arlovsky with some heavy shots, just forcing Andrei Arlovsky to trade. Andrei Arlovsky hit him with some good shots too, but Tom Aspinall had him almost finished at one point in the first round, had him backed up against the cage and started just pummeling him with like quick fucking jabs and hooks, like the speed of a fucking middleweight, if anything, and had him in trouble until Andrei Arlovsky closed in the clinch and forced Tom Aspinall to stop striking because he had to, get his distance. So obviously Andrei Arlovsky did a great job in just surviving pretty much the whole time. And then that was the end of the first round. It ended up being a closer round than I thought, but it was very clear that Tom Aspinall won it. Andrei Arlovsky kind of crept back and could have made a case, but he almost got finished. So I gave it to Tom Aspinall. So going into the second round, Andrei Arlovsky was expecting a stand-up clinic and a clinch clinic. Tom Aspinall was going to try to knock him out. So that's exactly what Andrei Arlovsky was expecting. That's the type of game that they were going for. They were both standing up and, throwing hands, countering each other until Tom Aspinall just goes for this nice double leg and gets his takedown under the hips and pushes Andrei Arlovsky against the cage, sits him down, and holds him there. So then Andrei Arlovsky tries to churn. He's trying to get back up to his feet, and Andrei Arlovsky goes on all fours, kind of giving up his back to get back up to his feet, to use the cage to kind of move slowly back up the cage wall. And as he does that, Tom Aspinall, like it's fucking nothing, just wraps his arm around Arlovsky's neck quickly and sinks in a choke and forces Arlovsky to tap. Obviously, it was a great performance by Tom Aspinall. Arlovsky showed his experience, but Tom Aspinall, man, like he showed that he is a complete fighter, and I would love to see him in the actual like top 15 potentially, because he's going to be a potential top contender in the future. Like that guy's got a future here in the heavyweight division. And it was a great fight. Great showcase by Andrei Arlovsky too, though. It's just unfortunate that he got caught with the choke. He left his neck open. And, you could tell he kind of noticed last minute because he tried to like pinch down his chin to kind of stop it, but he couldn't by the time he figured it out. Aspinall's bicep was already pushing against the one side of his neck, and the corner and the forearm was about to like clamp over the other side. So he was about to get that carotid artery. No matter what, it would have been a fucking force tap unless he was able to quickly fight those arms. But anyway, it was a good showcase by Tom Aspinall, and it was a great way to set the tone of the fights, because the entire fight card up until probably... Actually, no, I think the entire fight card until the Jared Gordon fight, the last fight of the prelims, were all knockouts. They were all knockouts. Not first round, they were all in different rounds, but they were all knockouts. They were all exciting fights. But anyway, so the submission kind of set the tone of the main card, and that brought us into a fight with Phil Hawes and Nasruddin Imavov. And this was supposed to be an expected easy fight for Phil Hawes. And for the most part, it started off a little easy because Amagov was, kind of waiting for Phil Hawes to, strike. So Phil Hawes was kind of getting first of the strikes. But Amagov was doing a good job countering, and it was forcing Phil Hawes to kind of utilize his groundwork and his wrestling. And not going to lie, the first couple times when Phil Hawes tried to go for a takedown, Imavov did a great job in defending that and kind of backing up against the cage and using that to kind of push away the takedown attempt. But Phil Hawes just showed how determined he is to get the takedown. And after a couple tries, he finally gets the takedown. And once they're on the ground, it's Phil Hawes time. And, even though sometimes the ground exchanges wouldn't last long, it was clearly Phil Hawes on the ground all the way. Yeah, it was just really surprising that Phil Hawes decided to utilize his groundwork. Amavov was giving him a bit of a tough time on the ground, transitioning very well and, kind of giving him a hard time getting back up to his feet. Obviously, it wasn't easy for Amavov to get back up to his feet, but was definitely making it a hard thing for Phil Hawes to grapple. But the thing I want to talk about, so Phil Hawes is up 2-0. The thing I want to talk about is the third round. So both guys are coming into this exhausted, okay? Imavov has been striking his heart out and just kind of trying to keep Phil Hawes' weight off of him, trying to get up, off of that weight. Phil Hawes has been trying to hold this guy down, been trying for takedowns and like pick him up and everything. They're both exhausted coming into this third round. And these two guys just start fucking throwing. Throwing sloppy ass strikes, but they're hitting each other hard. Imavov hits Phil Hawes with a strike that fucking wobbles him, and you can see it. But Phil Hawes is doing a great job at keeping his distance and backing up, even though he's wobbled, and countering and stopping those strikes from Imavov. And just both guys are sloppily countering each other with combos. It was just exciting to watch, and nobody could put each other away. But it was an exciting third round, and Phil Hawes ends up getting the 29-28 win against Imavov, and that led us... So the fight card's already exciting enough as is. It leads us into our next fight, which was another veteran versus another prospect in Chris Dukakis. And this went the way I did not expect it to. So Chris Dukakis... He's got hands, but he's a very good wrestler. He knows how to take you down. He's not a submission artist, but he's got heavy hands on the ground. He gets you on the ground, and he'll beat you into submission, and it's dangerous. So I kind of expected Chris Dukakis to kind of do that. And that's not what Chris Dukakis did at all. What he did was just... came out like a wrecking ball and just was throwing strikes at the speed of sound and hitting Alexei Oleinik, forcing Alexei Oleinik to strike. When Alexei Oleinik actually clinched and tried to take him to the ground, Dukakis did a great job at reversing that and putting Oleinik against the cage and hitting him with elbows and kind of forcing Oleinik to break up the clinch. And then he hit Oleinik with a hook that wobbled him, And then that was the end of it. He just started going for punches on Olynyk. Like, had him up against the cage and started hitting these nice shots in like almost like a clinch, but Olynyk was hunched over and was hitting these like vicious shots to Olynyk's head even though he was covered up, and there was really nothing you could do. Olynyk was just kind of, not defending at that point, and the ref stepped in, and that was the end of the fight. Chris Daukaus with a incredible show out against a veteran, a fucking veteran in Alexei Olynyk, who has more than 70 fights on his record and almost 60 wins alone in MMA. So that's quite the fucking feat, man. I got to give it to Chris Daukaus. He went out there against an incredibly tough guy who is dead on the ground, adjusted his game plan to something he couldn't do, and ended up striking and utilized that to his advantage, put Olynyk away like it was nothing. And I can't wait to see who he fights next. But then that brings us into a featherweight bout between Charles Rosa and Derek Menier. And this did not go the way I expected at all. So Charles Rosa, he's a good striker, but he's a very good grappler. He's great at submissions. He's got very deadly submissions. Derek Menier, not very much known for submissions, but he's an all-around guy. He's more of a veteran in this game, and he's good with his striking. So I thought this was going to be Charles Rosa's fight, and it was going to be on the ground. So I was half right. It was on the ground for pretty much the entire fight, but it wasn't Charles Rosa's fight. This is a case of me sleeping on someone's grappling. Derek Menier, it was pretty close on the feet between the two. I think Derek Menier, is it Menier or Minner? I'm going to say Menier for now. But Derek Menier, he did enough to kind of edge out the striking on the feet, even though Charles Rosa had his moments. And I think he even came close to hurting Derek Menier at one point. But the whole fucking story of the fight was fucking the ground game. He took Rosa to his game, the ground game, the submission game, and out-grappled Charles Rosa for 15 full fucking minutes. It may not look like that on the actual control time, but when you watch that fight, that is essentially what happened. Derek Menier had such fluid transitions, such quick transitions, and was so good at keeping Rosa down and countering those transitions that Rosa was trying to get off. Just outplaying him at Rosa's own game and making it a hard time to get up. There was probably maybe a handful of times that I can count on maybe one hand that Charles Rosa got to his feet during that fight. A mass majority of that fucking fight took place on the ground because of Derek Menier and his grappling. And I was so sad with myself that I slept on this guy's grappling. It was a great showcase by him. Very fucking smart plan, man. And just all around a great showcase by the guy. Shows how complete he is. And that kind of set the tone for our co-main event, because it was a co-main event between a grapple artist in Ketlin Vieira and a deadly clinch artist in Yana Kunitskaya, who actually fought Cyborg for the featherweight title a while ago. This fight was just... I'm not going to get too much into it, because we still have the main event to cover, and I believe I still have to go over next week's whole card that's been announced, I believe, and I have to cover UFC 259. So TLDR, this whole fight was pretty much on the ground, and it wasn't fun. And a lot of people, when the score was read out, thought that Ketlin Vieira got robbed. Even though she had more top control time, you have to be active when you're on top control and you have control. You cannot just sit there and let your opponent pummel on you while you're holding them there. They're being more active than you. And then when they were on the feet, Yana did more on the feet. So edging out the only other place to score, it kind of helped Yana in her favor. And so the fight was so boring that there was nothing really of note to talk about here. But Yana Kunitskaya wins by a majority decision, I believe. And that's that. That's all I want to talk about that. That brings us into the main event. And the main event didn't go the way I thought it would. But, you know, in my intellectual part of my brain, the MMA intellectual part of me thought that Curtis Blaydes was going to win this. But my heart can never go against the Black Beast. And it's just because he is the king of just get up bro style. He is the sensei, the master of the martial art known as just get up bro, the ultimate counter to wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. This man does not know the concept of MMA, nor do the laws of MMA know the concept of this man. He can get taken down and he can get right back up like it's nothing, or somebody can try to take him down, and when it looks like it's a clear takedown, he can wiggle, he can wobble, and he can back himself up and keep himself on his feet good enough to defend that takedown. And that's exactly what he did last night. Curtis Blaydes came out swinging, hitting Derek Lewis with some nice shots, trying to every now and then throw in a takedown here and there, because that's obviously the game plan. That's the clear path to victory. But Derek was doing too good of a job just defending those takedowns. And so he was getting Curtis Blaydes with some good shots. But Curtis Blaydes was also hitting him with some good shots too. I think he actually had Derek Lewis up against the cage at one point and started beating on him, but Herb Dean gave him a chance to recover, and Lewis did recover. And the second round came, and Curtis Blaydes tried to initiate his game plan, his clear path to victory, his game of attack. And Derek Lewis, with the hand of a nuclear bomb, lands this uppercut at the exact same moment that Curtis Blaydes is leaning down to go in for a double leg at his waist. And his, Curtis Blaydes' nose or something, chin or nose, connects square with this little quick fucking hard ass uppercut that came from Derek Lewis. And I shit you not, you don't see it right away until Derek Lewis pushes Curtis Blaydes off him and Curtis Blaydes falls back. But when that fucking punch lands, it's like the touch of death. Curtis Blaydes goes stiff in the pose that he's leaned over in. He goes stiff and seizes up and kind of holds on to Derek Lewis. So that's why Derek Lewis has to push him off. And he is knocked out so fucking clearly. And Derek Lewis goes in for 2 more follow-up shots, which I personally thought were unnecessary. But then he went on to say some funny shit like, those 2 extra shots, that was Herb Dean's fault, which I don't agree with, because Herb Dean, if you look at the replay, he tried to get in there as fast as possible, man. Derek Lewis just was doing what he was doing as a fighter, though, but I still think those last 2 shots were unnecessary. But he just murdered Curtis Blaydes, and while I'm happy for his win, I'm happy for his knockout and that he's back up in the top 2 position, and there's no doubt about it. Unless they want him against Ngannou again, if Stipe beats Ngannou, he is next in line for a title shot. There's just no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, that being said, I was worried about Curtis Blaydes' health because he was moaning and he was groaning, and he did not wake up for a very long while. It was like the same shit that happened with Alistair Overeem when Ngannou sent his fucking soul into orbit. Same shit. It was worrying. It was a cool knockout. Brutal. Fucking barbaric. And it's one of the reasons why I'm an MMA fan. But it was also very concerning for the fighter that got knocked out. Anyway, that being said, we'll get on to covering these cards now. Because we've got quite a bit to cover, quite a bit of fights to cover. Two main cards I want to cover first. I'll cover the main card of next week's fight night, and then I'm going to cover the entire card of UFC 259 because, dare I say it, for a card so early in the year, it is pretty goddamn stacked. It's got 3 title fights, and the main card's pretty stacked, but the prelims are pretty fucking stacked too, so I'll get into that in a bit. But first off, we need to get into the first main event that's happening next week, which is, yet again, another heavyweight main event between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and my favorite up-and-coming heavyweight prospect, the Frenchman, the scary French kickboxer, Cyril Gane. And I'm so excited for that event, that main event alone, because Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a kickboxer known for his deadly kicks. He's got power. He's very good with his punches. But Cyril Gane, very accomplished kickboxer. Every single win he's gotten inside the octagon has come by KO because of this, like these kickboxing techniques. This fight is going to be incredible. And then if that wasn't enough for your violence taste testers, we've gotten the co-main event before that, Nikita fucking Krylov versus Magomed Ankalaev, the man who fucking knocked out Iwan Kutalaba. And it was brutal. Nikita Krylov is known for just being a rough and tough light heavyweight, known for his knockout power. That is going to be another great fight. On paper, to the casual fan, it doesn't look good, but I assure you, watch this fucking fight night because the main event and the co-main event alone are going to keep you standing up. It's going to be fireworks. But before that, we have a women's flyweight bout between Montana De La Rosa and Mayra Bueno Silva. And then the bantamweight bout that was actually moved off of UFC 258, Pedro Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera, is going to be on the main card. And before that, we've got Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder, which is going to be fun because Angela Hill always brings the game when she's in the octagon, and her Muay Thai techniques are always brutal. She's always looking for a finish and always looking to break down her opponents. And Ashley Yoder, everybody knows what happened the last time Ashley Yoder fought. I said if she were to win, I would eat my shoe, and she won. So I had to eat my shoe. So maybe I'll make that same bet again next week. I'm very confident in Angela Hill. So yes, I will make that same bet, and I will indeed eat my shoe again. It might be a dirtier shoe to punish myself for being such a fucking idiot for sleeping on Ashley Yoder, but I will indeed eat my shoe again if she wins. But anyway, the final fight, I guess the first fight of the night to open up the main card is going to be a fun one because we've got Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, who's known for his wacky-ass kickboxing style, and he's just always exciting and fun to watch in the octagon, against Kevin Kroom, who is also another veteran who's also known for his exciting style. So that's going to be a great way to open up the main card, and definitely going to be a main card that you are not going to want to miss. Even if you miss the prelims, that's okay. Tune in for 8 o'clock Eastern time because that shit is going to be fucking bonkers. Every single fight except for maybe the Montana De La Rosa one, and even that could be a sleeper fight. Every single fight on this card for a fight night is looking like bangers. Nothing but nonstop bangers. But if that wasn't enough, if that wasn't enough for your MMA fix, so the 27th has that great fight night. But then the week after that, we have UFC 259, okay? I'm just going to read these fights out to you. I'm not going to even explain how great they are because they speak for themselves. So the main event, light heavyweight championship, Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. Co-main event, women's featherweight championship, the greatest women's fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes, going up against Megan Anderson. And then before that, the bantamweight title bout between Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling. That was supposed to happen last year, but then got moved to this year. And then before those title bouts, we have a lightweight fight between Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober, which is guaranteed fireworks because Islam Makhachev is a deadly striker and Drew Dober brings the fight every single fucking time. And then before that, we have what is going to be guaranteed a striking clinic between Thiago Santos, the man who on one knee gave John Jones a run for his money, up against Alexander Rakic, who's very well known for his rough and tough style, very good striking as well. So that's guaranteed going to be a banger. But if that wasn't enough, just listen to these prelims, folks. I usually don't. Well, I mean, actually, that's a lie. I always tell people to watch the prelims, but just listen to these prelims. The main card was stacked enough, but these are the prelims. So just opening up the early prelims, we have Rogerio Bortorin and Kai Kara of France in the flyweight division. And then after that, in the light heavyweight division, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu, who recently, last time I believe he fought, he got bagged to death by, I forget his name, but, and then if that wasn't enough, Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews. And that's just on the early prelims. On the regular preliminary card, we have Livia Hanada Souza versus Amanda Lemos. And then we have Joseph Benavidez versus Askar Askarov. That is a potential, number 2, number 1 contender fight. And then after that, we've got bantamweight fight between Song Yadong and Kyler Phillips. And then to headline the prelims, we have what I feel like should be on the main card, but you always need a good fight to headline the prelims when it's airing on TV. We have Dominic Cruz against the Megan Anderson hater himself, Casey Kenny. And that is going to be a great fight because we have one of the greatest bantamweights of all time going up against possibly the next generation. So that is the entirety of the UFC 259 card. And that's going to be incredible. One more thing before I go. This is not a breaking news update or anything, but it was one more thing that I actually just remembered as I was talking about UFC 259, because it's the event after that one. So, a while ago, actually last podcast, I talked about Khamzat Chimaev pulling out of his bout with Leon Edwards due to COVID-19 concerns. This time it seems to be for real. It doesn't seem to be it doesn't seem to be an excuse this time. He seems to actually have the Rona. And as I said last podcast, Leon Edwards was struggling to find an opponent. Many people were either calling him out and not interesting him, or the ones that did interest him, they didn't want the call out and they wanted nothing to do with him. However, one man came to save the main event, and his nickname says it all, because boy, you better listen to his fucking nickname. You better remember the name, because Bilal Muhammad steps in on 2 weeks notice and takes over for Khamzat Chimaev against a top contender in the welterweight division shortly after his last win, which I believe was at UFC 258. So, yeah, that's pretty fucking incredible. So, it's some pretty big news in MMA recently, and I can't wait for the coming weeks and their events. Gonna be great. Gonna have some great cards coming up ahead of us. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Before I go, once again, go check out that mini I uploaded last Thursday, or this past Thursday. It's very important. It will educate you on what's going on overseas in Myanmar, and just kind of raise some awareness on what's going on and how the military is, kind of running a dictatorship over there. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next episode. There may or may not be a mini this week. Depends on how I feel. I might just do them every other week. But anyway, if I don't see you guys on Thursday, I'm most definitely going to see you guys next Monday. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.